Did you know there are words you should never say in front of the Blessed Sacrament? Saint Teresa of Avila received a mystical warning about expressions many Christians use without knowing the spiritual damage they cause. Have you said some of them yourself without realizing it? Saint Teresa of Avila spent hours in Eucharistic adoration. In that deep silence before the Tabernacle, Christ showed her something that would change the way she prayed for the rest of her life. He revealed that there are words, phrases, ways of speaking before the Blessed Sacrament that push grace away, that empty out prayer, that wound His divine heart. Not blasphemies, not curses anyone would recognize as such. Just phrases spoken with good intentions, born out of distraction, hurry, lukewarmness, or simple ignorance of who is truly present in the tabernacle. Saint Teresa avoided them with extreme care. And today, you're going to learn each of the 7 words or expressions you should never say before Christ in the Eucharist. If you want to protect your prayer life and truly honor the Blessed Sacrament, write in the comments, "Saint Teresa, teach me to speak with reverence." Stay until the end, because after these 7 forbidden words, I'll show you exactly what Christ does want to hear from you before the tabernacle. The words Saint Teresa discovered that open heaven and completely transform your relationship with the Eucharist. Show your love for the Blessed Sacrament with a like, and subscribe if you want to live with real Eucharistic reverence. When Saint Teresa of Avila walked into the chapel and knelt before the Blessed Sacrament, something extraordinary happened. Her face changed. Her breathing slowed to almost nothing. For long minutes, she said not a single word. The Carmelite sisters around her noticed she prayed differently than the rest of them. Her lips barely moved. She wasn't reciting anything memorized. She simply stayed there, silent, eyes fixed on the tabernacle, as if she was seeing something no one else in the room could see. And she was. She saw Christ, present. Not a symbol standing in for Him, not a memory of someone who once lived, a living presence, real, active, looking straight at her. That mystical vision taught her something that reshaped her prayer for good, that there are words which should never cross the lips before the Blessed Sacrament. Words many Christians say with good intentions, and that still empty out their prayer, push grace away, wound the heart of Christ. Teresa didn't learn this from theology books. She learned it in mystical ecstasy, directly from Christ. And what He showed her mattered so much, weighed so heavy, that she spent the rest of her life warning souls about a danger almost nobody notices, because the problem isn't what we say outside the church walls. It's what we say facing the tabernacle, standing before God, made flesh, before the bread and wine consecrated into His body and blood. Plenty of people walk into a church, kneel before the Blessed Sacrament, and just start talking. Fast, a lot, without thinking. They repeat prayers learned by heart years ago. They ask for urgent things. They demand answers. They complain about their problems. Then they leave feeling unheard, empty. Exactly the same as when they walked in. And they wonder why their prayers before the Blessed Sacrament seem to carry no weight, why they feel no peace, why Christ feels so far away. Saint Teresa knew the answer. Christ hears everything. What's missing is that we've forgotten how to speak to Him. We've forgotten that before the Blessed Sacrament, we're not standing in front of an image, a symbol, a memory of someone who lived 2,000 years ago. We're standing before Him. The same Christ who walked through Galilee, who multiplied the loaves, who raised Lazarus, who died on the cross and rose on the 3rd day. That Christ, body, blood, soul, and divinity, is present in the tabernacle. And that presence asked something different of our words. Saint Teresa taught that before the Blessed Sacrament, we can't speak the way we speak to anyone else. The same tone we use on the street, at home, at work, doesn't belong here. Christ in the Eucharist isn't an ordinary friend. He is the King of the universe, hidden under the appearance of bread. The creator of all things, made vulnerable out of love. And that infinite love, that incomprehensible mystery, calls for absolute reverence from us, not out of fear, out of love returned. Reverence doesn't mean coldness, though. Teresa knew that well. Her closeness to Christ ran deep. She spoke to him with confidence, with tenderness, with the freedom of a beloved daughter. But that closeness never slipped into careless familiarity. She never forgot who she was standing before, so she watched every word she spoke in front of the tabernacle because she knew words carry weight. They build bridges or they raise walls. They open God's heart or they close it. Christ showed Teresa 7 words, 7 expressions, 7 ways of speaking before the Blessed Sacrament that shut the door on grace. None of them are bad words on their own. None are mortal sins. They're forms of speech that come out of distraction, out of hurry, out of spiritual lukewarmness, out of simply not knowing who is truly present in that tabernacle. And every time we say them without meaning to, we drain our own prayer. We turn the most intimate encounter available to a human being into something routine, empty, lifeless. Teresa watched devout souls, people who went to Mass daily, who received communion often, who spent real time before the Blessed Sacrament, and still saw no spiritual transformation in them. Their faith was real enough. What was missing sat somewhere quieter. Reverence in how they spoke. They talked to Christ in the Eucharist the same way they talked about anything else. And that difference, small as it looked, changed everything. Because Christ doesn't only hear what we say. He hears how we say it. He hears the heart behind the words, the intention, the tone, the state of the soul doing the speaking. And when our words come from hurry, from self-interest, from lukewarmness or distraction, He knows. His mercy never runs out. He never turns anyone away. But that prayer doesn't carry the strength it should. It doesn't open heaven the way it could. Saint Teresa left us this warning not to frighten us but to set us free, to teach us how to actually pray, to show us that Eucharistic adoration isn't only about standing physically before the tabernacle. It's showing up with the heart, with the mind, with every word chosen carefully and in love. Learn to speak rightly before Christ in the Eucharist, and everything shifts. Prayer gains weight, peace arrives, miracles happen. The first of those words, Saint Teresa never let herself say. Before the tabernacle is one you've probably said dozens of times, never knowing what it really means before a Christ who is truly there. The first word Saint Teresa of Avila never spoke before the Blessed Sacrament was this: hurry, or anything close to it. I need this urgently. Give me this now. Please, Lord, quickly. I don't have time. Phrases that sound harmless enough on the surface and reveal something deep about the state of a soul at prayer. Saint Teresa discovered in her mystical experiences that asking Christ in the Eucharist to act quickly isn't an act of trust. It's a demand that He fit Himself into our calendar. It tells Him, without saying it out loud, that His timing isn't enough, that His plan moves too slowly, that we somehow know better than He does when and how the answer should arrive. Whatever the intention behind it, that's trust wearing a mask of urgency. Christ is present in the tabernacle in His eternity. He sees past, present, and future all at once. He knows exactly when is the perfect moment to give us what we're asking for. He knows what our soul needs to prepare for a given grace. He knows which trials have to purify us first, which obstacles have to be cleared from the road ahead. When we show up before Him demanding speed, we're rejecting His infinite wisdom. We're choosing our own anxiety over His providence. Saint Teresa explained it to her Carmelite sisters this way: when we tell Christ to give us something quickly, we're acting like impatient children who don't trust that their Father knows what He's doing. Christ, infinitely patient, doesn't get angry with us for it, but our prayer loses its strength. It stops being a prayer of faith. It becomes a prayer of anxiety. And anxiety, Teresa said, is the opposite of contemplation. Eucharistic contemplation asks for interior silence. It asks us to hand ourselves over into God's care without demanding times or shapes for the answer. It asks us to say to Christ, "You know when, you know how, you know what's best for me." Show up before the Blessed Sacrament in a hurry, desperate for an immediate answer, and adoration turns into a business transaction. Christ becomes an employee expected to meet a deadline. So many people walk in with a list of urgent requests. I need a job this week. I need my son to get better today. I need this fixed by tomorrow. And they walk out frustrated, feeling unheard. But the problem was never that Christ didn't hear them. The problem is that they left him no room to answer in his own way, in his own time. Saint Teresa lived this herself. There were seasons when she needed money urgently to found her convents. Seasons when she waited on church permissions that took months to arrive. Seasons when her sisters fell ill and she begged for instant healing. And she learned, through tears, through real pain, that Christ always answered, just never at the speed she wanted. And when the answer finally came, it was always better than what she had pictured. Because Christ didn't just give her what she asked for. He gave something bigger, something more perfect, more holy. So Teresa dropped the word quickly before the Blessed Sacrament. She stopped demanding urgency. She started praying with full surrender. "Lord, this is what I need, but you know better than I do when I should receive it. I trust you. I wait on you. And even if it takes years, I know your timing is perfect." That prayer, that unhurried confidence, drew miracles that urgency never could have reached. Christ doesn't answer anxiety. He answers faith, and true faith carries no clock. It doesn't count the days. True faith says, even if it's late, I trust you. Even if I don't understand, I trust you. Even if the waiting hurts, I trust you. Think about your own prayer life for a moment. How many times have you knelt before the Blessed Sacrament demanding speed? How many times has frustration crept in because your prayers weren't answered on your schedule? How many times has Christ's goodness felt uncertain simply because he didn't move when you wanted him to move? Saint Teresa invites you to pray differently starting today. Walk into the church without a clock ticking in your chest. Kneel before the tabernacle without a deadline in mind. Tell Christ plainly, "Lord, I trust your timing, I trust your plan. I trust that everything I ask for will arrive exactly when my soul is ready to receive it. And while I wait, I adore you. While I wait, I love you. While I wait, I trust." That's the prayer Saint Teresa learned to pray. And it's the prayer that reshaped her spiritual life. Because the moment we stop demanding speed from Christ, his peace starts showing up. The peace that goes beyond understanding. The kind that doesn't depend on tomorrow's outcome, only on knowing the outcome rests in the right hands. If you've been praying with hurry, with urgency, with anxiety, today is the day to change that. Today is the day to walk into a church and say, "Forgive me for demanding speed from you. Forgive me for doubting your perfect timing. From today, I trust without rushing you. From today, I wait without dread. From today, I adore you without conditions." There's something even more serious that Saint Teresa uncovered, though. A word we say when our faith runs thin, and when Christ hears us doubt about who he is. The second word Saint Teresa never spoke before the Blessed Sacrament sounds humble on the surface, but hides a deep doubt underneath. "If you can." Or its cousin, "If it's your will," said not from contemplative surrender, but from quiet distrust. Christ showed Teresa that there's an enormous difference between saying, "If it's your will," from a place of faith, and saying it from lukewarmness. Said with true surrender, it acknowledges God's sovereignty over our lives. It accepts that his plan is better than ours. It opens us to receive what he knows we need. even if it looks nothing like what we asked for. That's holy surrender. But when, if you can, or if it's your will, comes out with a note of doubt, with the resignation of someone who's already given up, saying in effect, I'll ask, but I don't really think you'll follow through. That isn't trust. It's self-protection against the pain of disappointment. It tells Christ, I'm not sure you're able, I'm not sure you're willing, so I'll keep my expectations low and spare myself the letdown later. Saint Teresa saw this constantly in the souls who came to her for spiritual counsel. Many told her, Mother Teresa, I'm asking Christ to heal my husband if it's his will. And she would ask them, do you actually believe Christ can heal him? And more than a few answered honestly, I don't know, Mother. Maybe, maybe not. That was the real problem, not humility. Faith wearing humility as a disguise, because Christ can do all things. He is all-powerful. He raised the dead, healed lepers, calmed storms, multiplied loaves, turned water into wine. That same Christ, with that same power, is present in the tabernacle. Nothing is beyond him, absolutely nothing. And when we walk up to him saying, if you can, we're questioning his power. We're acting as if his divinity had a ceiling, as if some things were simply too large for him to handle. Saint Teresa remembered the gospel words, everything is possible for the one who believes. She remembered how Christ answered the father of the boy possessed by a demon who said, if you can do anything, have compassion on us. Christ answered him plainly, what do you mean if I can? Everything is possible for the one who believes. And the father, recognizing his own weak faith, cried out through his tears, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief. That's the posture to bring before the Blessed Sacrament, not denying our doubts, not faking a perfect faith we don't have. Recognizing our weakness and asking Christ to strengthen it, telling him, I believe you can do anything. My faith is small, grow it, strengthen it. Help me trust without doubting. What we can't do is walk up to Christ in the Eucharist with a divided heart, part believing, part doubting, part asking, part already resigned to receiving nothing. That inner split weakens our prayer. It makes it lukewarm. And Christ himself said in Revelation, I wish you were either cold or hot, but because you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. Spiritual lukewarmness is more dangerous than open doubt. Open doubt can be healed. Lukewarmness settles comfortably into mediocrity. Saint Teresa taught her sisters to pray with bold faith. Ask Christ for everything. Ask with full confidence. Ask believing he can give it. And if he doesn't, it isn't because he couldn't. It's because something better is already waiting. But never doubt his power. Never say, if you can. Say instead, I know you can. I trust you'll do it if it's good for me. And if it isn't, I trust you'll give me something better still. That's the prayer that moves mountains. A prayer that never questions God's power and surrenders completely to his will. Not out of resignation, but out of love. Not from fear of asking too much, but from confidence that God always gives the best. So many people have lost years of spiritual life praying with doubt, asking Christ for things without really believing he can give them. And when the answer doesn't come, they blame God. They say he didn't listen. They say he doesn't care. But the truth is, they close the door themselves with their own unbelief. Faith is the key that opens God's heart. Without it, no prayer carries weight. Saint Teresa lived extraordinary miracles precisely because she prayed with total faith. She asked for impossible things, money when she had nothing, permissions when everyone opposed her, healings when doctors had already given up. And often, not always, but often, Christ gave her the impossible, because she believed without doubting, because she never said, if you can, she said, I know you can, and I trust you'll act when the time is right. If you've been praying with doubt, if you've caught yourself saying, if you can, before the Blessed Sacrament, today is the day to change it. Kneel before Christ in the Eucharist and say with renewed faith, "Lord, I believe in your infinite power. I believe nothing is impossible for you. My faith is small. Grow it. Help me trust without doubting. Help me ask for everything with the certainty that you can give it. And if you don't, I'll know it's because you have something better for me. But I will never again doubt your power." That prayer will change your spiritual life. Christ responds to faith. And when we pray with real faith, without lukewarmness, without hidden doubt, heaven opens. Now comes one of the most painful ones for the heart of Christ. A word we say when we're distracted and it turns adoration into something hollow. The third word, or really, the third way of speaking, Saint Teresa avoided before the Blessed Sacrament was reciting memorized prayers with no one home inside them, no heart in it, no thought behind the words, turning prayer into a mechanical loop, empty of love. Christ showed Teresa that plenty of souls walk up to the Tabernacle and start running through Our Fathers, Hail Marys, entire rosaries, litanies, without really being present in what they're saying. Their lips move. Their minds are somewhere else entirely, on the day's problems, on what comes next, on whatever's eating at them. And all the while, their mouths repeat sacred words their hearts aren't feeling at all. Saint Teresa called this parrot prayer. Parrots repeat words without understanding them. Plenty of Christians do the same before Christ in the Eucharist. They repeat beautiful, doctrinally flawless prayers with nothing alive behind them. And no matter how correct the form, those prayers carry no power, because God isn't only listening to words, He's listening to the heart behind them. Teresa had nothing against memorized prayer. She prayed the rosary herself, the divine office, litanies of the saints, but she prayed them with full attention. Every word landed with awareness. Every mystery of the rosary was meditated deeply. Every petition was felt in the soul, not mechanical repetition. Living conversation with a Christ who was truly there. Christ taught her that He'd rather hear a single word spoken in real love than 1,000 words spoken without attention. He'd rather hear, "Lord, have mercy on me," rising from a broken heart, than an entire rosary recited by a wandering mind. What He looks for isn't a word count. It's the quality of the presence behind it. Plenty of people assume that more prayer is always better, and they fill their time before the Blessed Sacrament with long litanies, multiple rosaries back to back, no pause, no silence, no room for Christ to say a word back. They leave feeling like they did their duty without ever having had a real encounter, because there wasn't one. There was a monologue. Saint Teresa discovered that true Eucharistic adoration isn't about talking a lot. It's about being present, looking at Christ with the eyes of the soul, staying in reverent silence before Him, saying few words, but words that are felt, words born of love, words that carry what's actually in the heart. She spoke of stretches in her life spent hours before the Blessed Sacrament without saying a single thing, just looking, just adoring, just loving. Those silent hours did more to transform her soul than anything else. In the silence, Christ could speak to her. In the silence, she could hear Him. That wordless dialogue ran deeper than any spoken prayer ever could. But reaching that contemplative silence means first breaking the habit of mechanical prayer. It means walking into church without a checklist of prayers to get through, and instead arriving with an open heart, ready to be present, ready to talk to Christ the way you'd talk to someone you actually love. Think about how you speak to the people you love. You don't repeat memorized lines. You don't say the same words every time. You speak from wherever you are that day. You say what you're feeling in that moment, your joys, your sorrows, your fears, your hopes, and the person who loves you listens closely and answers. And something real happens between you. That's how prayer before the Blessed Sacrament should work. Christ is there, alive, present, waiting for us to actually talk to Him, waiting for us to set aside the recycled formulas and open our hearts instead, waiting for us to tell Him what we're truly feeling, not what we assume we're supposed to say. Saint Teresa taught, if you kneel before the Blessed Sacrament and don't know what to say nothing, stay in silence. Look at Him, let Him look at you. That's prayer, that's adoration. Words aren't required where love is real. If you're going to pray vocal prayers, pray them with attention. Slow down. Think about every word you're saying. Feel what you're saying. And if your mind wanders, don't panic about it. Come back gently to Christ's presence. Come back to paying attention to your own words. Reconnect your heart to your mouth, because mechanical prayer isn't just useless. It's a kind of offense. It tells Christ, I'm here physically, but my heart is somewhere else. I'm giving you my words, not my attention. I'm giving you my time, not my love. Christ, infinitely patient, doesn't reject us for this, but our prayer loses strength, loses life, loses power, and we walk out of the church exactly as we walked in. No transformation, no peace, no real encounter. Saint Teresa invites you today to change how you pray before the Blessed Sacrament. Trade quantity for quality. Say fewer words and mean every one of them. Allow yourself silence. Allow yourself simply to be before Christ without needing to fill every second with speech. He doesn't need our words. He needs us, present, attentive, in love. Pray that way and everything shifts. Eucharistic adoration stops being an obligation and becomes an encounter, one that transforms, that heals, that gives life. Saint Teresa saw something even more serious still, a phrase a lot of people say right as they finish praying, one that closes the door on miracles before they even leave the church. The fourth word Saint Teresa never spoke before the Blessed Sacrament had to do with how she said goodbye. Plenty of people, after spending time in adoration, get up and leave with cold, rushed, almost bureaucratic phrases. I'm off now. See you later. Bye, Lord. As if Christ were some casual acquaintance we're waving off without a second thought. Christ showed Teresa that how we end our adoration matters just as much as how we begin it. The ending reveals the true state of the heart. It shows whether we really lived an encounter with Him or just went through a religious motion. When someone visits a person they deeply love, the goodbye isn't cold. It isn't rushed. It isn't a quick bye tossed into the air while the mind is already somewhere else. The goodbye is careful, warm, full of gratitude for the time shared, full of the small sadness of having to leave, full of the promise to come back soon. That's how we should say goodbye to Christ in the Eucharist. After standing in His real presence, after opening our hearts to Him, after receiving His peace, we can't just stand up and walk out as if nothing happened. We can't say goodbye to Him with the same coldness we use with a bank teller or a store clerk. Saint Teresa taught that the moment of leaving the Blessed Sacrament should be a moment of renewed closeness, a moment to thank Him for His presence, a moment to tell Him we love Him, a moment to ask Him to walk with us out into the world, because without Him, we can do nothing. She never said goodbye to Christ. Goodbye implies a full separation, and Christ in the Eucharist doesn't stay locked in the tabernacle when we leave. He comes with us. He lives in us through the communion we've received. He walks beside us out into the street. There's no real separation between Christ and His soul that loves Him. So Teresa would leave saying something closer to, Lord, I carry your presence with me. I'm not leaving you here. I'm taking you in my heart. Walk with me, guide me, protect me. And until I'm back before this tabernacle, let my whole life be continuous adoration of you. That kind of goodbye isn't cold. It's intimate. It's real. It's the goodbye of someone who genuinely lived an encounter with Christ and doesn't want that encounter to end at the church door. Plenty of souls miss this entirely. they rush through the end of their adoration, check the clock, stand up quickly, give a fast little bow, walk out already thinking about the errands waiting for them, and in doing that, they break the closeness they just built during their prayer. They shut the door Christ had just opened in their heart. Saint Teresa watched people leave a church and within minutes forget they had ever been before Christ at all, already swallowed back up by their worries, their frustrations, their distractions. And she wondered, what was the point of that time in adoration? What good did it do to stand before the Blessed Sacrament if it changed nothing? If we don't carry His presence back out with us? Christ told her the problem sat right there in the goodbye. When we leave coldly, when we set Christ back on a shelf like an object, we shut the door on His grace continuing to work in us. We go back to living as if He didn't exist, and that empties everything out. True Eucharistic adoration doesn't end when we walk out of the church. It continues in the street, at work, at home, in every moment of the day. Christ isn't a God who only lives inside tabernacles. He wants to live in our hearts always. And when we say goodbye to Him rightly, when we leave the church consciously carrying Him with us, our whole life becomes continuous prayer. Saint Teresa lived exactly this. She'd leave the chapel after hours of adoration without leaving Christ behind. She carried Him with her. While founding convents, while writing her books, while caring for her sisters, while enduring persecution, her heart stayed connected to Christ in the Eucharist. Because the goodbye had never really been a goodbye. It had been a renewal of presence. That's what Christ hopes for from each of us, that we don't leave Him in the tabernacle when we walk away, that we carry Him with us, that we talk to Him throughout the day, that we remember His presence in hard moments, that we live aware He's with us always, not only when we're physically kneeling before the Blessed Sacrament. So the next time you finish a period of Eucharistic adoration, don't say goodbye coldly. Don't just say bye or see you later. Pause for a moment. Look at the tabernacle with love and tell Christ, thank you for this time with you. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for loving me. Now I go out into the world, but I carry you with me. Walk beside me. Don't leave me alone. And let everything I do today be for your glory. That kind of goodbye will change your whole experience of Eucharistic adoration. It won't be an isolated moment in your day anymore. It'll be the start of a continuous presence that transforms your whole life. Now we need to talk about a word people say when they're angry or frustrated before the tabernacle. One Saint Teresa said, wounds the open heart of Christ directly. The fifth word Saint Teresa never spoke before the Blessed Sacrament was any form of bitter complaint. Phrases like, why won't you listen to me? I've already asked 1,000 times. You never pay attention to me. You always ignore me. Why do others get answers and I don't? Words born of anger, of frustration, of impatience. Words that turn adoration into a demand and conversation with Christ into an angry accusation. Christ showed Teresa that these words wound his heart in a particular way, not because he's thin-skinned or vindictive, but because they reveal that the soul saying them has forgotten who he is and who she is, forgotten that he is God, infinitely wise, infinitely good, infinitely merciful, forgotten that she is a beloved creature, but a creature all the same, and that God has no obligation to grant every wish exactly when and how we'd like it granted. Saint Teresa understood human suffering deeply. She endured terrible illness for years. She lived through misunderstanding, persecution, extreme poverty. There were moments she begged Christ for relief and none came. Moments she asked for a clear sign and found only silence. Moments her human heart felt the pull toward accusing God. Why do you allow this? But Teresa learned that bitter complaint shuts the soul's doors. It hardens the heart. it pushes grace further away. Because when we complain with resentment, we're placing our own will above God's. We're telling Christ, "You're wrong. I know better than you what I need. And since you won't give it to me, I'll complain, I'll demand, I'll accuse you." And that complaint, however human, is spiritually corrosive. It turns our relationship with Christ into a transaction. I pray to you, you give to me. I adore you, you meet my demands. And when Christ doesn't meet them, the resentful soul stops trusting, stops loving, and starts drifting away. Saint Teresa saw this in many souls who came looking for comfort. They'd tell her, "Mother, I don't even know anymore if God hears me. I've prayed so much and received nothing. I've asked for healing and I'm still sick. I've asked for work and I'm still without a job. I've asked for peace in my family and there's only fighting. What's the point of praying if God doesn't answer?" And Teresa would answer with loving firmness, "God always answers. But He doesn't always answer by giving us what we asked for. Sometimes He answers by giving something better. Sometimes He gives us the strength to carry what we wanted removed. Sometimes He answers with silence, because that silence is the very trial that purifies our faith. But He never ignores us. He never abandons us, and accusing Him out of resentment is a real offense against Him. Christ Himself lived something like this on the cross. When He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" There's no accusation in that cry, no resentment hiding underneath it, just the deepest human pain a person can carry, the feeling of divine abandonment carried by someone who still trusted. Christ knew the Father hadn't abandoned Him. He knew there was a purpose in it all, and He surrendered to that purpose fully, even to death. That's the difference between a trusting cry and a resentful complaint. The cry says, "Lord, I'm suffering. I don't understand why, but I trust you." The complaint says, "Lord, you're wrong. You should be giving me what I ask for. And since you're not, I'm angry at you." Saint Teresa teaches us that it's fine to bring our pain to Christ. It's fine to tell Him we don't understand. It's fine to cry before the Blessed Sacrament. It's fine to ask Him why He allows certain things in our lives. But all of that should come from trust, not resentment. From wounded love, not bitterness that accuses. Job is the perfect example. He lost everything, children, wealth, health. And in his deep pain, he questioned God. He asked why. He voiced his anguish. But he never cursed God. He never accused Him with resentment. And in the end, God restored him. Not because Job had finally understood everything, but because Job trusted even without understanding. Plenty of people have lost years of spiritual life, turning their prayer into constant complaint. They walk up to the Blessed Sacrament only to grumble, only to demand, only to accuse Christ of not doing what they want. And with every complaint, their heart hardens a little more. Grace drifts further away, not because Christ pulls back, but because they've built walls with their own bitterness. Saint Teresa invites us to break that pattern, to notice when our prayer has slipped into resentment, and to turn that resentment into trusting supplication instead. To tell Christ, "Lord, I don't understand why you allow this. It hurts, it frustrates me, it fills me with anguish, but I trust you. I know you have a plan. I know you love me. And even when I can't see your hand at work, I know it's there. Help me trust. Help me stop accusing you. Help me surrender to your will." That prayer changes everything, because when we stop complaining with resentment, we make room for Christ to show us His plan. We make room to receive comfort. We make room for His peace, the kind that surpasses understanding, to fill our hearts even if nothing around us has changed. If you've been accusing Christ, if you've been praying with bitterness, if you've felt unheard and let that feeling turn into complaint, today is the day to heal that wound. Kneel before the Blessed Sacrament and say honestly, "Forgive me for accusing you. Forgive me for doubting your love. Forgive me for placing my will above yours. From today, I trust without complaint. From today, I accept your plan even when I don't understand it. From today, I love you without conditions. There's one more thing devout souls do without realizing it, a way of speaking before the Blessed Sacrament that confuses real humility with false smallness. The sixth word Saint Teresa avoided before the Blessed Sacrament was false self-contempt. Phrases like, "I'm nothing," "I'm garbage," "I don't deserve to look at you," "I'm the worst," "I'm worthless before you." Words that look like humility on the surface and are actually an insult to Christ's redeeming sacrifice. Christ showed Teresa that there's a world of difference between true humility and sick self-hatred. True humility recognizes our smallness before God, but it also recognizes our dignity as beloved children. Self-contempt denies that dignity outright. It denies that Christ died precisely because we're worth infinitely much to Him. Saint Teresa put it this way: saying we are nothing is true if we mean that every good thing in us comes from God. But saying we are garbage, that we don't deserve His love, that we're the worst, that isn't humility. That's an insult to Christ's work on the cross. Because Christ didn't die for garbage. He died for souls He considers worth saving. Plenty of people confuse humility with self-humiliation. They believe the more they tear themselves down before God, the more humble they must be. And they kneel before the Blessed Sacrament repeating, "I don't deserve your love. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve your grace." And with every one of those words, they're denying Christ's infinite mercy. Because here's the truth: none of us deserves God's love. None of us deserves His forgiveness. None of us deserves His grace. Christ gives it freely anyway. Not because we've earned it, but because He loves us. And when we insist on our own unworthiness, when we wallow in self-contempt, we're rejecting that free gift. Saint Teresa had to learn this the hard way. There were seasons of her life when she saw herself as the worst of sinners, unworthy of any grace at all. She'd spend hours before the Blessed Sacrament mourning her own wretchedness. But Christ showed her in a vision that this attitude didn't glorify Him. Quite the opposite. It grieved Him. He didn't want Teresa fixated on her misery. He wanted her fixed on His mercy. Christ told her, "Teresa, I know you're small. I know you're weak. I know you've sinned. But I've forgiven you. I've cleansed you. I've made you a new creature. And when you keep telling me you're garbage, you're denying my redeeming work in you. You're saying my blood wasn't enough to wash you clean." And that wounds me. Those words reshaped Teresa's spirituality. From that point on, she stopped fixating on her unworthiness and started fixing her eyes on the dignity Christ had given her. She stopped saying, "I'm nothing," and started saying, "I'm a beloved daughter of God." She stopped saying, "I don't deserve your love," and started saying, "Thank you for loving me even though I don't deserve it." That's true humility. Not denying our smallness, but not denying our dignity either. Recognizing we're limited creatures, and also recognizing we bear the image and likeness of God. Recognizing we're sinners, and also recognizing we're forgiven. Recognizing we're weak, and also recognizing that in Christ we are strong. The trouble with false self-contempt is that it keeps all the attention on us, on our misery, our sins, our unworthiness. And by doing that, we stop looking at Christ. We stop seeing His love. We stop experiencing His mercy because we're too busy drowning in our own lowliness. Saint Teresa taught, true humility looks little at itself and much at God. False humility looks much at itself and little at God. That's why true humility brings peace, while false humility brings anguish. Consider this for a moment. Is your prayer before the Blessed Sacrament centered on you or on Christ? Do you spend more time mourning your own misery or thanking Him for His mercy? Do you leave church feeling loved or feeling worthless? If you leave feeling worthless, something is off in how you're praying. Eucharistic adoration should leave us feeling Christ's infinite love. It should make us feel small, yes, but small in loving arms. Not small and abandoned, not small and worthless, small and infinitely loved. Saint Teresa invites us to change our language before the Blessed Sacrament. Stop repeating that we're nothing, that we're worth nothing, that we deserve nothing. Start telling Christ, Lord, I know I'm small, I know I'm weak, I know I've sinned, but I also know you love me. I know you've forgiven me. I know you've made me new, and that's why I adore you. Not because I'm worthy, but because you are merciful. That prayer glorifies Christ. It puts the focus where it belongs, not on our misery, but on His mercy. Not on our unworthiness, but on the love that gives us worth. Praying that way, recognizing our dignity as beloved children of God, changes everything. We stop living in the anguish of self-contempt and start living in the freedom of God's children. The kind of freedom that doesn't deny our limits, but doesn't deny our infinite value in Christ's eyes either. If you've been putting yourself down before the Blessed Sacrament, denying your own dignity, insulting Christ's redeeming work with your self-contempt, today is the day to change that. Kneel before Him and say, "Forgive me for denying my dignity. Forgive me for rejecting your love with false humility. From today, I accept myself the way you accept me. I love myself the way you love me. And I adore you, knowing I am your redeemed masterpiece." And the last word Saint Teresa warned us about might be the hardest to catch in ourselves. Something we say when our prayer only ever points back to us. The seventh and final word Saint Teresa avoided before the Blessed Sacrament wasn't a single word at all, but an attitude that colors everything we say: spiritual selfishness. Praying before Christ in the Eucharist only for our own immediate needs, only for our problems, only for our family, only for our own comfort. Never interceding for anyone else, never adoring, never thanking, never sparing a thought for a suffering world that needs prayer too. Christ showed Teresa that plenty of souls walk up to the Tabernacle with a mental checklist of personal requests. Give me this, give me that, help me here, fix that for me. And once the list runs out, they stand up and leave, as if Christ in the Eucharist was some kind of spiritual vending machine we only visit when we need something. Saint Teresa understood that everyone has needs. She had them herself, and it's fair to bring them before Christ. But when our prayer shrinks down to only asking for ourselves, something has gone badly wrong. True prayer before the Blessed Sacrament should include adoration, gratitude, intercession for others, and only then our own personal requests. Teresa explained it with an image. Imagine visiting a powerful king who loves you. Would you show up only to ask him for things? Wouldn't you thank him first for everything he's already done? Wouldn't you tell him how much you admire him? Wouldn't you speak up for others who need his help too? That's how it should be before Christ the King, present in the Tabernacle. Spiritual selfishness is subtle. It doesn't look like a grave sin. It dresses itself up as faith. I'm praying, I'm asking, I'm trusting. But prayer centered only on ourselves shows we haven't yet grasped what it means to love Christ. Because loving someone isn't only asking them to fix our problems, it's caring about them, asking what they need from us, offering ourselves for their mission. Saint Teresa spent long hours before the Blessed Sacrament without asking for anything for herself at all. She simply adored. She told Christ how much she loved him. She thanked him for his sacrifice on the cross. She asked forgiveness for the sins of the whole human family. She interceded for the souls in purgatory. She prayed for priests, for sinners, for the church, and only at the end, if at all, did she bring up a need of her own. Christ taught her that order matters. Beginning our prayer with adoration, gratitude, and intercession for others opens up the heart. We stop being so centered on ourselves. And when we finally bring our own petitions, we bring them without the anxiety of selfishness, with the peace of someone who knows God has everything in hand. Think back to your last visit to the Blessed Sacrament. What did you actually say to Christ? Did you tell him you love him? Did you thank him for something specific? Did you pray for someone who's struggling? Or did you go straight to your own list? If your prayer was only asking for yourself, there's no need for guilt. But recognize that there's a deeper level of closeness with Christ still waiting for you. One where your prayer no longer circles around you, but around him. Where your greatest desire isn't that he solve your problems, but that his kingdom come, his will be done, his name be made holy. Saint Teresa lived this shift herself. Early in her spiritual life, her prayer centered on her own needs too. Healing for her illnesses, resources for her convents, protection from her enemies. But over time, her prayer changed. She grew more concerned with God's glory than her own comfort. She began offering her sufferings for the conversion of sinners. She began interceding for souls she'd never even met. And when her prayers stopped circling herself and started circling Christ, she found a depth of peace and spiritual power she'd never known before. Christ responds powerfully to souls seeking his kingdom's good, not only their own. The world is full of pain. Right now, millions are suffering. The sick with no comfort, the poor with no bread, addicts trapped and enslaved, families falling apart, souls drifting close to ruin, discouraged priests, persecuted missionaries. And Christ hopes that when we stand before his Eucharistic presence, we carry all of them with us. Saint Teresa taught, spend an hour before the Blessed Sacrament and pray for no one but yourself, and you've wasted that hour. Christ gave you that time not only to solve your problems, but to make you his instrument of intercession for the whole world. Intercession is one of the most powerful ministries that exists. Praying for others before the Blessed Sacrament carries their souls straight to the heart of Christ. It has mercy for them. It draws grace over their lives. Often they'll never know someone prayed for them, but they'll feel changes they can't explain. Sudden conversions, unexpected healings, unforeseen freedom, all because someone interceded, and Christ rewards intercessory souls. Not always with what they asked for themselves, but always with something better. Deep peace, a real sense of purpose, the certainty that their lives leave an eternal mark. If you want to change your prayer life, if you want real closeness with Christ in the Eucharist, start praying less for yourself and more for others. Don't drop your own petitions. Just put them where they belong, at the end, not the beginning. Spend most of your time before the tabernacle adoring, thanking, and interceding. That generous prayer, the kind that thinks of others before itself, is the prayer that pleases Christ most. It reflects his own heart. He didn't come into the world looking out for himself. He came to give his life for us. And when we pray thinking of others, we come a little closer to being like him. Now that you know these 7 words, there's one more thing you should know. What to do once you realize you've been saying them for years without knowing it. Now that you've heard the 7 words Saint Teresa avoided before the Blessed Sacrament, you might be feeling a little uneasy. Maybe you've realized you've said several of them for years. Maybe you're recognizing that your own prayer before Christ in the Eucharist has carried hurry, doubt, distraction, coldness, complaint, self-contempt, or selfishness. If that's you, don't despair. Saint Teresa has a word of hope waiting for you too. Christ isn't judging you for having prayed wrong. He understands your humanity. He knows no one ever taught you this. He knows we've grown up in a culture that's largely lost its sense of Eucharistic reverence. His infinitely merciful heart wants only one thing, that starting today, you begin speaking to him differently. Saint Teresa taught that purifying our language before the Blessed Sacrament doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, a road you walk step by step. And the first step on that road is the humble recognition that we've been praying in an impoverished way. When Teresa discovered these truths, she didn't sink into guilt. She didn't spend days mourning all the years she'd prayed poorly. She simply knelt before the tabernacle and told Christ plainly, "Lord, forgive me. I didn't know these words wounded you. I didn't know my way of speaking was emptying out our relationship. But now that I know, I want to change. Teach me to pray. Teach me to speak to you the way you deserve." Christ answered her with tenderness, "Teresa, your good will is enough for me. I'm not asking for instant perfection. I'm asking for a sincere intention to improve. I'll take care of the rest." Those words comforted Teresa deeply, and they should comfort us too. The truth is, we're all still learning how to pray. Even the saints went through this purification of language. Even they had to unlearn wrong ways of addressing God and learn new ones, more reverent, more intimate, more honest. Saint Teresa discovered that the best way to purify our language before the Blessed Sacrament is contemplative silence. Walk into church with fewer words instead of more. Learn to listen instead of constantly talking. Let there be room for quiet, where Christ can actually speak back. She spent long stretches before the tabernacle without saying a single word, just looking, just adoring, just loving. And in that silence, Christ taught her things no book ever could. He showed her the right way to approach him. He revealed the words he longed to hear. Contemplative silence isn't easy at first. Our minds are used to constant noise. We're used to filling every moment with words, with thoughts, with distractions. Trying to hold a silence before the Blessed Sacrament can feel uncomfortable, restless. We start wondering if we're actually doing anything useful. But Saint Teresa assures us that silence is the most productive thing of all. In the silence, Christ works on us in ways we could never imagine. He purifies the heart. He calms anxiety. He heals wounds. And little by little, he teaches us the right way to speak to him. We can also purify our language by paying closer attention to every word we say before the tabernacle. Before speaking, ask, does this word come from love or from anxiety, from trust or from doubt, from reverence or from hurry? And if you catch something coming from the wrong place, correct it right there. Say you're about to say, "Lord, give me this quickly." Pause, breathe, reframe it. "Lord, I trust your perfect timing. Give me this when you see I'm ready to receive it." See the difference? Same need, entirely different posture behind it. Or you're about to say, "If you can help me." Pause, reframe. "Lord, I know you can help me. I trust your infinite power. And if you don't help the way I expect, I trust you have something better prepared." That single shift changes everything. Saint Teresa practiced this constantly. She watched every word, not out of anxious scruple, but out of real love. She knew words carry weight, and she wanted every word leaving her mouth before Christ in the Eucharist to be worthy of him. Another way to purify our language is learning the short contemplative prayers of the saints. Brief but deep phrases that carry reverence, trust, love, and surrender. St. Francis's prayer, "My God and my all." St. Faustina's, "Jesus, I trust in you." Or simply repeating the name of Jesus with each breath. These short prayers, repeated with full attention, help us carry Christ's presence through the whole day, not only while physically kneeling before the tabernacle, but on the street, at work, at home. Eucharistic adoration shouldn't stay locked inside the time we spend in a church. It should stretch across every moment of our lives. Saint Teresa lived in continuous adoration. Even while founding convents, writing her books, handling administrative matters, her heart stayed joined to Christ in the Eucharist. She had learned to speak to him internally, constantly, not with many words, but with a loving presence. And that's what Christ hopes for from each of us. Not perfection in how we pray, a sincere intention to improve, that each day we try to speak to him a little better, that each day we drop one wrong word and pick up a more reverent one in its place, that each day we grow a little closer to him. If you've realized your language before the Blessed Sacrament needs purifying, be glad. That recognition is the first step toward real change, and Christ, endlessly patient, will walk that road with you. He'll teach you, he'll correct you gently, and little by little you'll watch your prayer become deeper, more powerful, more transforming. There's something even more beautiful still that Saint Teresa left us. The words we should say before the Blessed Sacrament, the ones that open heaven. Now that you know the 7 words Saint Teresa avoided before the Blessed Sacrament, it's only right you know the ones she did say. The words Christ hopes to hear from us. The words that open heaven and transform our relationship with the Eucharist. Saint Teresa discovered that the most powerful words before Christ in the Eucharist aren't the fanciest ones, not the longest prayers, not the most theologically polished formulas. They're the simplest words, spoken from the most sincere heart. The first word Christ hopes to hear from us before the tabernacle is, I adore you. 2 simple words carrying everything. Adoration means recognizing he is God and we are creatures. It means bowing interiorly before his infinite majesty. It means looking at him with total reverence and saying, you are everything. Without you, I am nothing. Saint Teresa spent hours repeating only those words. I adore you, my Christ. I adore you, King of the universe. I adore you, crucified love. And in that simple but profound adoration, she experienced mystical ecstasy. Christ responds powerfully when a soul bows before him in real reverence. The second word Christ hopes to hear is, thank you. How often we come before the Blessed Sacrament to ask, and how rarely to give thanks. Saint Teresa taught that before asking for anything, we should spend time thanking him for the life we have, thanking him for the salvation he won for us on the cross, thanking him for his real presence in the tabernacle, thanking him for graces already given, and the gratitude should be specific, not a generic thanks for everything. Instead, thank you for my family, thank you for my health, thank you for saving me from that danger, thank you for forgiving me that sin. Thank you for being here, present, even though I don't deserve it. Praying with specific gratitude fills the heart with joy. We stop focusing on what's missing and start seeing everything we already have. And that joy draws in more blessings because God pours out abundance on grateful souls. The third word Christ hopes to hear is, I love you. And this word has to be spoken not only with the mouth, but with a whole life. Telling Christ, I love you before the tabernacle, and then walking out to live as if he didn't exist, is a kind of lie. Real love shows itself in action. Saint Teresa knew this well. She'd tell Christ, I love you, Lord, and to prove it, I'm going to found this convent even if everyone opposes me. I love you, and that's why I'll obey my superiors even when they don't understand my mission. I love you, and that's why I'll carry this suffering, offering it for sinners. Eucharistic love isn't romantic sentiment. It's serious commitment, total surrender, a willingness to give one's life for him, the way he gave his for us. The fourth word Christ hopes to hear is, I trust you. Not I trust you if you give me what I ask for. Not I trust you as long as everything goes well. Trust without conditions. Trust even without understanding. Trust even through pain. Trust even if it takes years to see the plan unfold. Saint Teresa repeated this constantly before the Blessed Sacrament. In you I trust, Lord. In you alone. Not in my own intelligence. Not in my own strength. Not in human resources. Only in you. And that absolute trust gave her peace through the worst storms of her life because she knew Christ had everything in hand. The fifth word Christ hopes to hear is, "Your will be done," but spoken the way Christ himself spoke it in Gethsemane, not with defeated resignation, not with bitterness, with loving surrender. "Your will be done, Father, because your will is always what's best for me, even when my humanity can't grasp it." Saint Teresa learned to say this in her hardest moments. When her convents were on the verge of closing for lack of funds, she said, "Your will be done." When her superiors forbade her from founding any more houses, she said, "Your will be done." And every time she said it, a supernatural peace settled over her because she knew she was in the right hands. The sixth word Christ hopes to hear is, "Forgive me," spoken from a contrite heart, not mechanically, not listing sins already forgiven 100 times. Honestly naming our present failures and asking for the grace not to repeat them. Saint Teresa went to confession regularly, but she also asked forgiveness daily before the Blessed Sacrament. She showed Christ her imperfections, her impatience, her small failures, and Christ showed her his infinite mercy. That daily experience of being forgiven kept her humble and grateful. The seventh word Christ hopes to hear is, "Send me." Not only bless me, not only protect me, but use me for your glory. Send me wherever you want me to go. Make me an instrument of your love. Let my life draw souls to you. Saint Teresa said this constantly. "Lord, send me. Use me. Don't let me live for myself. Let every day of my life serve to extend your kingdom." And Christ took her seriously. He sent her to found 17 convents. He used her to reform the Carmelite order. He made her a doctor of the Church, because souls who truly offer themselves to God, God uses them powerfully. These are the 7 words Christ hopes to hear from you before the Blessed Sacrament. I adore you. Thank you. I love you. I trust you. Your will be done. Forgive me. Send me. Learn to pray with these words. Make them part of your daily life, and your relationship with Christ in the Eucharist will be completely transformed. No longer surface level, real closeness, true friendship, love that transforms. And now, before we close, I want to leave you with something Saint Teresa left behind for every soul who wants to speak rightly before the Blessed Sacrament. We've reached the end of this road. You now know the 7 words Saint Teresa avoided before the Blessed Sacrament and the 7 words Christ hopes to hear from you. But none of this knowledge means anything if it never becomes practice. Saint Teresa left us a simple pact we can make with Christ in the Eucharist today. A personal commitment that will change your prayer life for good. Here's the pact. The next time you walk into a church and kneel before the tabernacle, before saying a single word, stop. Breathe deeply. Look at the tabernacle with reverence. Remember that Christ is there, present, alive, watching you with infinite love. Then tell him honestly, "Lord Jesus, present in this tabernacle, today I make a pact with you. I promise to watch every word I speak in your Eucharistic presence. I promise not to speak to you in a hurry, but with trust in your perfect timing. I promise not to doubt your power. I promise not to pray distracted, but with real presence. I promise to say goodbye to you with love, not coldness. I promise not to accuse you out of resentment, but to trust your plan. I promise not to belittle myself, but to accept the dignity you give me. And I promise not to pray only for myself, but for a whole world that needs your mercy. Help me keep this pact. Teach me to speak to you the way you deserve, and let every encounter with you before the tabernacle be one that transforms me. Make this pact sincerely, and Christ will honor it. Little by little, you'll see your prayer change. Your language before him will grow purer. Your Eucharistic adoration will deepen, growing more intimate, more transforming. And remember what Saint Teresa used to say, Life is measured by the intensity of our love for Christ in the Eucharist. It doesn't matter how many years you live. What matters is how much you've loved Christ present in the Tabernacle, how much time you've spent with Him, how reverently you've spoken to Him. Starting today, may every visit to the Blessed Sacrament bring you closer to heaven. May every word you say before Him carry real love. May your whole life become continuous adoration. If this video touched your heart, if you recognized words you need to stop saying before Christ, if you want to grow in Eucharistic reverence, subscribe to this channel for more teachings drawn from Saint Teresa. And go watch our video on the 7 attitudes Saint Teresa practiced during communion, because it fits perfectly with everything we've covered today. May Saint Teresa intercede for you. May Christ in the Eucharist bless you, and may your heart burn with reverent love before the Blessed Sacrament. Amen.